The Galactic Empire, a sprawling dominion spanning thousands of star systems, prided itself on its technological superiority and military dominance. Its rulers, complacent in their perceived invincibility, had faced countless rebellions over centuries, each one crushed with ease. To them, resistance was not a threat but an inconvenience, a minor distraction in the endless expanse of their rule. It was during this era of unchallenged supremacy that whispers began to spread through Imperial intelligence channels, rumors of a new insurgent faction. The reports were vague and inconsistent, describing a force so small that it hardly warranted concern. An officer in the War Council dismissed the notion with a chuckle, calling it a blip on the galactic radar. Others joined in the ridicule, theorizing that it was likely a group of backward primitives armed with salvaged weapons. After all, what could a tiny army possibly achieve against the Empire's colossal war machine? Despite the mockery, protocol demanded action. A scouting fleet was dispatched to investigate the origin of these so-called rebels. The fleet's commander, a seasoned veteran, considered the mission a waste of resources, but followed orders without question. Upon arrival at the designated coordinates, a barren planet orbiting a dying star, initial scans revealed nothing remarkable. The surface was desolate, marked by craters and ruins that hinted at ancient battles long forgotten. The fleet descended, their sensors detecting faint energy signatures emanating from underground structures. What followed was a routine operation. Troops deployed, advanced drones scoured the terrain, and reconnaissance teams moved in to confirm the target's presence. Minutes turned into hours, with no resistance encountered, reinforcing the belief that this tiny army was nothing more than a myth. Then, without warning, the Imperial fleet's comms went dark. One by one, ships lost contact, their distress signals replaced by bursts of static. Aboard the command ship, confusion turned to alarm as vital systems began to fail. Shields flickered, weapons malfunctioned, and navigation systems displayed chaotic readings. The commander, for the first time in years, felt the unfamiliar sting of panic. A single transmission broke through the chaos, a garbled message from one of the scout ships. The voice on the other end was frantic, barely coherent. It's them, they're human. The signal cut out before the message could be completed. Back at the Imperial War Council, the report of the fleet's disappearance was met with disbelief. The loss of an entire scouting unit to such an insignificant force seemed impossible. Speculation filled the room, with theories ranging from environmental anomalies to sabotage by rival factions. Yet one word lingered in the air, spoken in hushed tones by those who reviewed the final transmission: humans. The Council dismissed the idea outright. Humanity was a relic, a race of scattered survivors whose homeworld had been lost millennia ago. They were presumed extinct, their presence in the galaxy reduced to myths and half-remembered tales. No one in the Empire took the possibility seriously. After all, how could a handful of humans stand against the might of the Galactic Empire? The humans were few, but what they lacked in numbers, they made up for in skill, ingenuity, and adaptability. Unlike the rigid, hierarchical forces of the Galactic Empire, this tiny army operated with fluid precision, each soldier trained to think independently while working seamlessly as a unit. They weren't fighting for conquest or ideology. They were fighting for survival, and that made them relentless. When the Imperial forces descended on what they believed to be a simple hideout, they found nothing but silence. No enemy soldiers, no visible defenses, just empty terrain. But as they moved deeper into the area, the traps began. Mines activated by weight sensors took out entire squads. Automated turrets, concealed within the rocky outcrops, targeted Imperial soldiers with pinpoint accuracy. Even their advanced drones, designed to scout and neutralize threats, malfunctioned inexplicably. The humans had mastered guerrilla tactics, turning every disadvantage into an opportunity. Their weapons, though appearing crude compared to the Empire's sleek technology, were devastatingly effective. They had reverse-engineered alien tech, combining it with old human ingenuity to create tools the Empire didn't anticipate. EMP devices disrupted the Empire's reliance on automation, rendering their mechs and drones inert. Portable energy shields, powered by miniaturized fusion cells, absorbed enemy fire and allowed humans to close the distance for lethal strikes. Their understanding of war went beyond technology. They exploited the Empire's arrogance, knowing their opponents would underestimate them at every turn. Imperial commanders, accustomed to overwhelming their enemies with brute force, found themselves outmaneuvered and outwitted at every engagement. In one skirmish, a small team of human soldiers lured an entire platoon into a canyon, where they detonated explosives that caused a landslide, burying the Imperial forces beneath tons of rubble. The Empire, for all its advancements, relied heavily on rigid protocols and AI-driven strategies. The humans, on the other hand, thrived in chaos. Their history had forged them into survivors, honed by millennia of wars, disasters, and the harsh conditions of their lost homeworld. Their leaders weren't generals sitting in distant war rooms, but soldiers on the ground, making split-second decisions based on instinct and experience. Every strike the humans made seemed to carry a message: you are not untouchable. Imperial supply lines were targeted with surgical precision, cutting off reinforcements and leaving frontline troops stranded. Communications relays were sabotaged, plunging entire sectors into disarray. The Empire's overwhelming size became its weakness, as the humans exploited its inability to adapt quickly to unexpected threats. What unnerved the Empire most wasn't the losses, it was the efficiency with which they were delivered. Entire units would vanish without a trace, their ships found derelict, with no signs of battle, but no survivors either. The humans fought not just with weapons, but with their minds, using psychological warfare to sow fear and confusion. Messages intercepted from human transmissions often carried taunts, mocking the Empire's failures and daring them to send more forces. For the first time in centuries, the Galactic Empire faced an enemy it didn't understand, one that refused to fight on its terms. And for the first time, it began to realize that this tiny army was far more dangerous than anyone had imagined. The Empire's patience was wearing thin. The losses, though minor compared to the full scale of its military might, were a humiliation that could not be ignored. To crush this rebellion once and for all, an armada was assembled, a fleet so vast it could obliterate entire planets. The plan was simple: overwhelm the humans with sheer numbers and firepower, leaving no room for their cunning tricks. As the fleet entered the sector where humanity's forces had last been sighted, confidence was high. This was a show of force meant to end the conflict swiftly and decisively. But the humans had anticipated this move. They knew the Empire would react with overwhelming force, and they had been preparing for it all along. The fleet's advance was unchallenged at first, the humans seemingly nowhere to be found. Imperial commanders interpreted the silence as fear, a final admission of defeat. But as the armada approached a nebula, the first signs of trouble began to appear. Navigation systems faltered, and sensor readings became unreliable. The nebula, rich with electromagnetic disturbances, interfered with the Empire's advanced technology. Yet the fleet pressed on, determined to locate and destroy the enemy. Suddenly, chaos erupted. Small, agile ships emerged from the nebula, striking with precision before disappearing back into the dense cloud. These vessels, piloted by humans, were built for speed and maneuverability, exploiting the Empire's clunky reliance on larger, heavily armored ships. Each strike targeted critical systems, crippling engines and power supplies while avoiding unnecessary casualties. The Empire's commanders scrambled to adapt, ordering their forces to regroup and focus on the smaller ships. But the humans didn't fight like traditional enemies. They used the nebula itself as a weapon, leading Imperial ships into gravitational pockets and magnetic fields that damaged their systems further. Attempts to pursue the human ships only led to more Imperial losses, as the humans set traps within the nebula, mines that detonated with devastating force, leaving entire squadrons in ruins. Within hours, the Empire's armada was in disarray. Messages from captains across the fleet described not just physical attacks, but psychological ones. Human transmissions hijacked Imperial communication channels, broadcasting taunts and misinformation. Some messages mimicked distress calls, luring Imperial ships into ambushes. Others were direct challenges, mocking the Empire's inability to adapt and survive outside its comfort zone. On the command ship, the Admiral struggled to maintain control. For the first time, he began to question the invulnerability of the Empire. "How can they do this?" he muttered, watching another section of the fleet fall silent on his display. The realization dawned on him slowly but unmistakably. The Empire had underestimated not just the humans' capabilities, but their very nature. A turning point came when a captured Imperial officer was interrogated by human soldiers. Forced to confront their captors face to face, the officers saw something terrifyingly familiar in their eyes. A relentless determination born from centuries of struggle. The humans spoke of their origins, of their homeworld that had forged them into survivors. "You think your empire is powerful," one human said, their voice calm and measured. "But power means nothing if you don't know how to endure." As the interrogation ended, the officer was released, sent back to the Empire as a messenger. The message was clear. The humans would not bow, and the Empire's arrogance would be its undoing. The officer returned to a fleet in shambles, where the once proud armada now resembled a scattering of frightened prey. The balance of power had shifted, and the Galactic Empire, for the first time, began to grasp the enormity of its mistake. The remnants of the Imperial fleet gathered at a distant staging point, battered and demoralized. Reports of defeat spread like wildfire, shaking the Empire's foundations. What had once been seen as an unshakable pillar of control now appeared fragile. Yet even in the face of mounting evidence, many in the Empire refused to believe that a force so small could deliver such devastating blows. The decision was made to send reinforcements and wipe out the humans once and for all. As the Empire mobilized its reserves, the humans prepared for the inevitable. They knew the next battle would be the Empire's last desperate attempt to reclaim its dominance. While the Empire relied on numbers and overwhelming firepower, the humans relied on strategy, foresight, and an unyielding determination to fight for their survival. Their forces, though still few, had gained allies, species once oppressed by the Empire, inspired by humanity's defiance and courage. These allies provided intelligence, resources, and the will to rise against their common oppressor. When the final battle began, the Empire committed everything. Massive dreadnoughts, swarms of drones, and legions of troops descended upon the battlefield, determined to end the conflict swiftly. Yet every move they made played into the humans' hands. The humans had studied the Empire's patterns, its reliance on predictable strategies and centralized command structures. They knew the Empire's greatest strength, its sheer scale, was also its greatest vulnerability. Human infiltration teams struck first, bypassing the Empire's outer defenses to target key command ships. These teams, experts in sabotage and subterfuge, disrupted communication networks and disabled critical systems from within. The Empire's admirals, cut off from one another and unable to coordinate effectively, were forced to operate independently, a situation they were ill-prepared for. On the front lines, human and allied forces executed a carefully orchestrated assault. Using decoys and misdirection, they lured the Empire's ships into unfavorable positions, where concentrated strikes from human fighters caused catastrophic damage. The humans had turned the very environment against the Empire, using asteroid fields and gravitational anomalies as weapons to restrict the enemy's movement and force them into kill zones. Amid the chaos, the humans delivered their final message. They hacked into the Empire's flagship and broadcast a simple but chilling statement. You came here to end us. Instead, you've unleashed us. The galaxy is watching, and your reign is over. The psychological blow was as devastating as the physical one. The Empire's forces began to fracture, with some ships retreating while others fought on in disorganized desperation. Captains who had once been confident in their invincibility now faced the realization that they were outmatched, not in firepower, but in willpower and ingenuity. As the battle ended, the Galactic Empire's forces lay in ruins. The humans had not only survived but emerged victorious, proving that even the smallest force could topple a seemingly unassailable power. The Empire's defeat ignited uprisings across its territories, as oppressed species rose up to reclaim their freedom. In the aftermath, humanity extended a hand to these newfound allies. They didn't seek domination or revenge. They sought to build a galaxy where no one would ever again suffer under the heel of tyranny. To those who had doubted them, they had proven a simple truth. Humanity was not to be underestimated. They were not defined by their size or technology, but by their indomitable spirit.